The bugle rose from the hill, a thin thread of sound that cut straight through my throat. Flags hung at half-mast, barely breathing in the wind. I stood at the back row of wooden chairs, hands clasped behind me, the way years of MP duty trained me to stand. Beret tucked under my arm, shoes polished so bright, they mirrored the gray sky. People tell you grief comes like a wave. No one tells you about the hollow afterward, how your heart keeps waiting for one more note after the bugle stops. I looked at my mother's name on the fresh stone and swore the letters still looked wet. Charlene slid in from the left, perfume so sweet it clawed the air. She smiled half a smile at the mourners, whispered thanks, then leaned to my ear. "You're not family anymore." The words hit like a chip of dry ice. Before I could move, her hand snapped my MP patch off my service dress, tearing a small seam. The rip sounded like someone snapping an old rule in half. Instinct took my wrist correct angle, correct pressure, then let go. I reminded myself I don't detain anyone anymore. Not in front of my mother. My aunts watched like they'd seen this play before. Some looked away. Some pretended to dig for tissues. Families have a kind of silence that fills cracks so the house won't collapse, even when the beams are already rotten. Wind brushed the clipped grass, wet soil mixed with the metallic smell of a new headstone. For a second I was back on a rain-soaked parade field, uniform heavy with water, cadence steady. I used to believe if you kept your step long enough, you'd reach a roof. When I was a kid, Mom taught me to double-loop my combat boots on the wooden steps. She'd tighten the knot, rub my head, and say laces are promises you make to yourself, go all the way. We had an old grill out back, BBQs, with neighbors every weekend. I remember the char on the meat, Mom clinking a Coke can against mine, sauce on our fingers, laughing, "Don't grow up too fast." The wind blew that Polaroid of a moment across my face, and then handed me back to the cemetery wet grass at my ankles, Charlene crying on cue on beat. When the service ended, chairs folded, the honor guard drew down the flag, and people drifted toward the lot in a hush. Charlene rose on her toes to hug some aunt, put on the right kind of sob, then turned to me with eyes dry as bone. "House keys, paperwork, debit cards, give them to me. Your mother said so." I stared at her. "My mother never called you sister." She shrugged, flicked a strand of hair, manicure shining like river water. "Whatever. You're not staying there anyway. I'm changing the locks tonight." She pivoted off, the damp shadow of her heel printing the stone. My phone buzzed, an auto email from the bank, password change confirmed. I hadn't requested anything. Throat gone bitter, I tried to log in. The spinner crawled, then spit out access denied. Far off, clouds muscled into a pewter strip, the sky pressing down like a lid. I pocketed the phone, crushed a few funeral home tissues in my palm, cheap detergent smell. A state trooper passed and offered his condolences. I nodded because I didn't have language left. His gaze paused at the torn spot on my chest, took it in, filed it, and he moved on, radio whispering static on his shoulder. Just before I left, an elderly woman pressed a brown envelope into my hand. "The girl at the post office asked me to deliver this today." My name was handwritten Morgan 1 underline. A yellow sticky on the corner read, "State Trooper will deliver." My heart double-tapped. Mom never left things to chance. She planned like she folded uniforms. I slid the envelope into my inner pocket. It felt heavier than an envelope should. Back at the house, white siding, gray roof, magnolias along the street, the porch steps still squeaked the same. In the backyard, the old grill sat under a tarp, one corner loose and fluttering. Charlene leaned against the doorframe with a stack of papers. "Your mother signed power of attorney to me." She flashed a fuzzy photocopy. Before I could read it, she sidestepped to block me and jerked her chin at my suitcase in the living room. "Grab your stuff and go. I want quiet." There was no reverence for the newly dead in her eyes. I walked past the candle wax and plastic flowers, past Mom's photo hung crooked. My lips formed "I'm sorry" to the frame, though Mom never asked for apologies. I packed fast, one old backpack. The MP patch slipped out when I tugged the zipper. I picked it up and studied the loose thread, a stitch that hadn't been cut clean. Charlene glanced down and smirked. "Leave that. Nobody needs it here." I dropped the patch into the small pocket and yanked the zipper closed. On the porch, she held out her palm. Keys. I looked at that hand, long fingers, glossy nails, a demand shaped like an order. I'll return them when I see a lawful document. My voice flattened into report tone. Her face darkened, then brightened like she'd found a new game. Whatever. Locks changed tonight, and your card already frozen. The door shut. The deadbolt clicked like a period. Outside, wind carried the smell of incoming rain. I stood at the curb with the pack heavy on my left shoulder, my left knee buzzing, old gate-duty ligaments sparking when the weather turns. I breathed deep, cut past the magnolias, and reached Mom's old sedan sleeping in the lot. I bent, pressed my forehead to the cold metal to steady my breath. Somewhere a mower kicked on, its blade clacking. The town kept doing its own chores like nobody had just been pushed out of a home. I opened the brown envelope in the car. Inside, a small state seal card with a trooper post address, a tiny silver key, and a note in a hand I knew by heart: pick up the lockbox. No address, no explanation. Mom's script, no doubt. My wrist trembled. She never left temptations where duty could see them. If she sent this, it meant it was time. I turned the ignition, dropped the shifter, rolled away from the cul-de-sac. In the rear view, the white fence shrank and disappeared behind trees. Every yard of road pulled another thread out of me, light and aching. I parked at a grocery lot, glanced at my phone. Another alert. Primary account contact changed, updated. I sank back, let out a laugh with no sound. Someone thought they could box me in with portals and photocopied signatures. They didn't know I've red eyes through visors and stood guard in rain to keep a gate on time. I pulled a pen from the glove box and wrote inside the envelope, "Go all the way." When I turned the engine again, rain started ticking on the glass. I felt ready for a road with no one holding an umbrella over me. And I knew, cold and metal sure, that the silver key in my palm would open something that was both an answer and the next storm. I curled my fingers around it and felt the teeth imprint my skin. Behind me, the old house had closed. Ahead, another door was waiting to be opened. The motel's neon blinked like a tired eyelid. Vacancy lit up, died, lit again, each stutter a reminder there was always a spare room somewhere for people trying to disappear. I parked beneath a sagging rain chain, left shoulder aching from the pack. The lobby bell was a little silver cup. I tapped it and the ding rang like a drop into a tin basin. The clerk came out with a porcelain flower clip in her hair, chewing gum. She slid me a wrinkled form, asked for ID and a card. I handed over my veteran ID and a credit card. The swiper whined and spit a thin purple ink receipt. Room 12. Here's your key. She didn't look at me. Maybe she didn't look at anyone. Maybe she saw 100 people a week who wanted to be air. Room 12 opened on a mix of cheap cleanser and old damp carpet. Heavy brown curtains. The AC groaned like a tired animal and exhaled a wrinkled kind of cold. A sailboat print hung crooked, tilting left like it had given up. I dropped my pack on the chair and splashed water on my face. The tap had that metallic smell like a coin held too long. In the mirror, faint blue half-moons sat under my eyes, not party dark, the kind you get while calculating an exit. My phone buzzed. Charlene, video call. I laid the screen face down on the bed, sound on normal. When I lifted it, her face filled the frame, skin stretched taut like shrink wrap. ID and bank cards. I'll handle the estate, pay the funeral, and cut your little vanity spending. I caught a corner of Mom's house behind her, a new plastic bouquet on the table. Mom never called my bills vanity. Charlene's smile thinned. Listen carefully, starting now, everything goes through me, unless you want me to bring a mental instability file to court. I set the phone down on the bed, inhaled like I was about to enter an interview room. Send lawful paperwork, I said. Then we'll talk. She hung up. A text hit a second later, blurry power of attorney, and a note about changing the locks. She'd already done it. I tried online banking. The spinner turned and turned, then access revoked. The room's damp smell crawled into my throat. I coughed. MP instincts switched on. I opened notes and built a checklist: change email, kill location services, call bank for fraud alert, set transaction flags. I remembered a house I'd responded to in uniform: domestic violence, woman curled on a sofa, husband clenching his jaw in the hall. She didn't cry. She stared at a dead TV. When we left, she asked me quiet, "Do you ever feel like you live in a room with no windows?" I used to say, "There's always a door right now, it's just too dark to see the handle." I finally understood the look in her eyes when she heard that she didn't believe me, but she wanted to. Motels have their own night sounds. The soda machine at the end of the hall coughed a can whenever someone fed it a tired dollar. In 11, a TV blasted a local stock car race. The announcer shouted names only this county would know. I laid out what I had left: a small silver key, the state seal card, the brown envelope folded neat. I rolled the key in my palm and felt the teeth bite into the pad of my thumb. Even tired, my brain stacked the two priorities: protect the papers, protect myself. Around midnight, someone knocked 3 taps, pause, 2 taps. I held my breath, slid back to the desk, hand on the pack where I kept a legal pepper spray and a little hardware store folder. "Who is it?" Silence. I checked the peephole and saw a shadow and neon bleed. "Motel," a flat male voice said. "Water meter check." I planted my foot against the door, cracked the chain. The man stood off-angle, ball cap low. No meter, no tools. I shut the door and turned the deadbolt. My heart beat like a drill-weak drum, only this rhythm was off. I texted the emergency number printed on my receipt: unknown person, knocking at room 12, claims maintenance. "I'm not opening." No reply. I thought about leaving right then, but the sky was dumping water and my left knee had started to fizz. I called Pastor Ray voicemail. I left a report tone message: "It's Morgan. I'm safe enough at a motel, but accounts are locked and someone knocked pretending to check a meter. I'll come to the shelter in the morning." I switched to airplane mode and taped the webcam with a strip of glow tape. I always carry MP habits. I dragged the desk up to the door and wedged a chair leg under the handle like a makeshift brace. In the dark, the chair turned into a silent sentry. Sleep came like it does in barracks, shallow but serviceable. I woke to weak coffee drifting under the door, somebody walking by with a paper cup. I brushed with tap water, tied my hair back, squared the bedspread like an inspection. When I drew the curtain, gray light poured in with the sound of semis chewing past the gas station across the road. I hit the front desk for one more free coffee packet. The clerk handed it over without looking up, still chewing. Back in 12, 3 messages lit my screen. One from Charlene: "Bring cards and ID to my house, or you'll regret it." One from the bank: "Unusual activity, call us," and a voicemail from an unknown number. I put it on speaker and sat on the edge of the bed. A low, steady voice, a hint of radio static behind it. "Ms. Carter, this is Trooper Ethan Morales. I'm entrusted with a lockbox your mother left at our post. I tried to reach you at the cemetery, but it wasn't the right moment. If you get this, please come to the station at the address on the card. There are details I think you should know." He paused, weighing a thought. "I'm sorry for your loss." And a small, clean silence: "Come in daylight. Don't take the trail by the lake alone." The message ended with a car door opening and rain stippling a hat brim. I sat still, phone warm in my hand. Something was waiting behind a door I hadn't had the nerve to open. I didn't know if it was rescue or the next storm, only that it was my mother's, and she rarely did anything halfway. I laced my shoes, double-looped, pulled tight. Laces are promises, go all the way. I pulled the chair wedge from the door, pocketed the silver key, and for the first time since the funeral, felt my body move, not to hide but to find. The Magnolia Street back to Mom's place lay like an old ribbon, wet leaves kissing my tires. I cut the engine at the curb and sat one extra beat to let my pulse catch up. MP muscle memory kicked in: ID, pocket notebook, phone recorder on, live location shared to Pastor Ray even if he wouldn't see it. Just so I'd know there was an invisible arrow following me. I straightened my collar, slid the lockbox key into my inside pocket, and climbed the steps. Charlene opened the door before I touched the bell, like she'd been posted there. Vanilla candle and floor cleaner fought in my nose. "Well, look who remembered the way." She poured syrup over glass. I kept my voice level. "I'm here as an heir to review the house paperwork, the will, and funeral expenses. I'll be making copies. She leaned in the frame with a hot coffee cup. You're not stable enough to handle documents, Morgan. I have a psychiatric report. Don't make this hard. She stretched the word psychiatric like it was a cuff. I held up my phone with the recorder live. This conversation is being recorded. Something flickered in her eyes, then the shrug. Record away. Make it a set. She stepped back. I followed and clocked the porch camera in the corner. Dead lead. I paused, looked up. Porch cam's dark. Charlene tracked my stare, smirked. Storm knocked the internet. Who knows? Inside, a console table held a too neat stack of fresh forms. Corners stapled ready in a way that made my teeth itch. I pulled on thin nitrile gloves, a habit for important paper, and fanned the stack. They were medical POA and financial POA formats, supposedly signed before Mom died, but the fonts didn't match, and the dates looked hand-dropped. At the baseline of letters, the toner feathered cheap printer tells. Charlene cleared her throat. Skim faster. Someone's coming to see the house. She pinged a fingernail against her mug ting. Behind me, the door eased shut, the auto latch slid home. I glanced at the interior camera, the little red record eye, dark. Why are every camera in this house not recording? I asked. Her mouth tilted. Who cares? God, Morgan. You suspect everything like you're still gate duty. This is my house. I folded the papers. It's my mother's house. The last word slipped out before I bit it back. Charlene set the cup down hard on a silver tray, her eyes cooled. She's my mother on paper. Your mother's gone. The side door cracked. Mrs. Me from next door peeked in with a basket of rolls. I brought a little bread. She stalled at the air in the room. Mr. Harlan stood behind her with a cane all angles. You're Morgan? He asked. Your mom used to love the lakeside camp, the old Girl Scout place. Said it was the best place to breathe. Charlene whirled, sugar scorching. Just leave the bread, thanks, we're busy. Harlan held my gaze one long second, enough to pass a message without words. Go find the lake. He nodded and guided me out. I took the momentum and slid the stack into my folder. Charlene pinched for a grab. I held. I'm copying these. Her face went pin-dot small before stretching into a stranger's smile. No. She yanked harder than I expected, tendon lit up in my wrist. My left knee stabbed as I stepped back, heel skidding on carpet. Charlene shoved my shoulder. It wasn't a big push, just wrong angle enough to fold the bad knee. Heat shot down my shin. I braced on the console. The coffee toppled, brown arcs splashed and spread like a crime scene stain. See, Charlene yelled toward the window like someone was filming. She's unstable. She's destructive. She attacked me. I breathed through it and looked her in the eye. There are cameras. I stopped. We both knew there weren't. She blinked slow, smiled crooked. Exactly. There aren't. She stepped close, perfume thick as a curtain. Leave, Morgan. Before I call the police and tell them you broke in to steal documents. I laughed once, no joy. Call. I'd love to tell them about Highway 17 last night. A small muscle ticked at her lip, then disappeared. I grabbed my bag and backed to the porch. Mr. Harlan waited at the bottom step. Mrs. Me stood beside him, both pretending to admire the flowers. That lakeside camp, he murmured, half an hour by car. Dirt road off 17 Ridge. She took photos there last year. I thanked him with my eyes. Mrs. Me slid a small paper sack into my hand. Peanut butter sandwich. For the road, her warm palm steadied my shake. At the gate, my phone buzzed. Text from Charlene, a screenshot of an email to someone with a legal-sounding title. Morgan shows signs of mental instability, needs financial guardianship. Another text, a padlock emoji, then not a cent left. I tapped the link, guardianship dashboard. I exhaled slow, like loosening laces after a long march. No sense doesn't mean no way. I tossed the sandwich on the passenger seat, the knee sending quiet sonar pulses up my thigh, hands steady on the wheel. I thumbed a note. Fast 1, get gas station cam near QL17, ask Morales. 2, verify signatures on POA. 3, find Lakeside Camp 17 Ridge. 4, never meet Charlene alone. 5, keep Lockbox key. Up ahead, the sky cleared. Clouds tore into cotton. I signaled and merged. In the rear view, Charlene framed herself in the doorway, hand on hip, her shadow cutting into the living room where Mom's photo hung crooked. She lifted her phone, no doubt to weave another version of events. Fine, I had my own version, a version with a highway, a lake, a key and cameras that didn't roll while the neighbors still saw. I turned toward the green highway sign with the big 17 and heard Mom's voice in my head, when you can't find the handle, follow the rain line. I didn't need rain anymore. I had a dirt road and a silver key biting my palm. If Charlene thinks darkness is her only ally, she forgot what we learn on Gate Guard, study the dark before the sun comes up. Charlene's text hit as I was clearing the edge of town gas station at mile 214. Sign and I'll hand over your mother's papers. The words felt like a shove between my shoulder blades. I started my phone recorder, dropped it in the cup holder, and recited my own SOP: no side trails, no empty places, keep distance. Storm clouds welded themselves into a single sheet of lead, wind laid the grass flat. Highway 17 stretched like a tight wire, white lines ticking past in metronome time. Mile 214's gas station crouched under a rusty tin awning, sign flickering. Oil and pre-rain hung together in the air so thick you could taste salt. Charlene rolled in late, slid her SUV into the next slot. Heel to concrete clack. Quick, she said, fanning a thin folder: sign here, here, and here. I shifted half a step back, eyes raking the text. Power of attorney and waiver of claims boxes familiar in a way that set off alarms. I'll read it first. Her mouth thinned into a blade. Read fast, it's about to pour. Thunder rolled slow across the iron sky. First taps on the roof, then a hard drum like someone upended a bucket. I had just spotted a tiny misspelling in Mom's last name, something that would never appear on anything. Mom drafted when Charlene snatched the folder back. Forget it. She turned and walked into the rain. Come on. Instinct told me to stop, but another part, the part that wanted an end to all this, made me follow. We got into her SUV. I buckled in, kept my pack in my lap like a shield. She cranked the radio louder than necessary, country twang punching the glass. We're going to my lawyer's office. It's close. Wipers carved two bright swaths that kept rejoining, like two lives refusing to run parallel. We blew past a wooden road signed 17 Ridge. I angled my head. Where's the lawyer? Charlene didn't answer. The road narrowed. Trees leaned in. Wet leaves smuggled their smell through the window crack. My gut tightened. This wasn't the route. Stop, I said, the old MP tone rising without permission. Turn back to the main road. She smiled into the rear view. Relax. She pressed the gas. I searched with my foot for the old school door lock lever. Nothing. Central lockout. I slid a hand into my pack, touched the legal pepper spray, counted to 3, brought it out onto my thigh. She saw it and crooked a smile. Violence, that's your specialty, isn't it? The dirt lane arrived without warning. Tires skated on mud and kicked it up in arcs. I gripped the grab handle. Heat needled my left knee. Charlene braked hard. Headlights made a silver curtain out of the rain. Out, she said. We'll sign here. No, I said low. This isn't a law office. She cocked her head. Still trying to be smart. She hit the central unlock. The wind hit with the door, rain like ice pins. While I was fighting the seatbelt, she yanked open my door and shouldered me hard. My left knee smacked the frame, white fireworks behind my eyes, a sharp blade finding the old weak spot. Mud swallowed my ankles. Rain slapped my face. She reached, tore the pack off my chest, flung it to the shoulder, and slammed the door. Red taillights narrowed, then closed like two eyelids. Flat on my back, I gulped rain. New asphalt and green moss made a cold, mineral stew in my mouth. Far off, headlights sliced and vanished. I rolled and pushed up. The knee felt like someone had jammed a hot ball bearing into the joint. Drill memory took over. Deep breath, weight shift, plant with the right leg, brace with the left hand. I got vertical and hugged a reflector post. The sky was an iron pan. Tree crowns chewed a ragged edge into it. I tested a step. The left knee buckled, the joint clicked quiet but enough to spike my pulse. Not far. A white wash of light, maybe the gas station. I began the slow drag, one step, then another, like spinning a safe dial. An engine low and steady crept up behind me. Training made me turn and throw my palm up to stop, the way we learn to halt traffic in bad weather, arm high, fingers forward against the glare. The beams dipped. A silver state trooper cruiser idled in. The light bar winked one soft cycle and went dark. The door opened. Miss Carter. Rain sharpened his voice, but the edges were clean. I knew it, Morales, I asked, because my brain hadn't caught up to my body. Don't move, he said. I'm calling EMS. 2 minutes later, I was under a thin blanket in the cruiser, plastic warm and radio heat filling the cabin. Morales handed me a water bottle. Small sips. He assessed the knee without touching it, reading the angle and how I kept the joint. We'll hit the ER. Your pack. I pointed toward the shoulder. He went out into the rain and came back soaked, pack dripping. I'll keep it here. I nodded, lips shaking. Thanks. He set the pack at my feet, slid behind the wheel, turned the heater up. I'm not going to ask for details you're not ready to share. But, he met my eyes in the mirror. Do you want to report an assault? I drew a breath the way you do before you write the first line of a statement. Yes. ER white burns the eyes at night. Disinfectant always takes me back to graveyard shifts. A nurse parked me on a rolling bed. A doctor rotated my left leg, asked for pain numbers. I answered like a checklist. X-ray clean for fractures, diagnosis ligament strain, soft brace, some pain meds. Rest ice, the doctor said. And don't let anyone drive you out into the dark again tonight. I laughed at the customer service tone of it, like I'd just made a poor purchase. Back in the waiting area, Morales sat in a plastic chair, shoulders still wet. He stood as soon as he saw me. I've got your pack, he said, and he set a waterproof poly pouch on the tray. Inside a silver key that matched mine and a second state seal card. I frowned. I kept the backup set, he explained. Your mother left 2 packages in case one got lost. You've got the first, this is the second, plus the exact address for the lockbox. I'm sorry I didn't hand it over at the cemetery, it wasn't the place. His voice dropped. Some of what I saw in the intake notes concerns me. He showed me a photocopy, the lockbox receipt, with Mom's name and a handwritten line, if Morgan arrives alone, please call State Trooper for daytime escort. Mom's slanted script at the bottom, trust her. I ran a finger over the poly. The chill of the metal bled through. Charlene shoved me out of her car, I said in report cadence. She tried to make me sign in the rain where no one would see. Morales nodded, something dimming in his eyes. I believe you. I can pull the gas station cameras at mile 214. The dirt road, he lifted a shoulder. No cameras. But there are tire impressions. I gave him the rest, the fuzzy papers, the conveniently dead house cams, the threats about my accounts. He didn't interrupt, just asked short questions to thread the facts. Finally, he said, tomorrow I can bring you in for a formal statement. After that, if you want, I'll escort you to the lockbox. Daylight only. Avoid the lakeside trail until you know the ground. His glance flicked to my brace. You need a partner. I can reach Pastor Ray or your buddy. Jenna, I said. The name caught like a grapnel. I'll call her. I left the ER with the waterproof pouch and a pack wrung out by time. Outside, the rain had thinned like it had finished its shift. Morales opened the cruiser door for me. The courtesy had the feel of someone who's clocked too many long nights. You okay? Okay enough, I said. As we rolled, raindrops stretched into long strings in the mirror, wiping the hospital out like a chalkboard. The knee still hummed, but it had company now, purpose. We stopped at the motel. Morales passed me a card, the back scrawled with a duty number. Anyone knocks, call. I'll push patrol past this strip tonight. I nodded. Thanks. He hesitated a beat, then Morgan, some people think rain is an ally. Stay outside long enough and you learn water has a memory. It keeps prints. I smiled without showing teeth. I used to read blood after rain. I can learn to read tires. He tipped his head, gave a short farewell, and drove off. No lights, just a white ribbon sliding into the drizzle. Room 12 still smelled like cheap cleanser, now with a top note of new nylon. I set the 2 silver keys side by side on the table like quotation marks bracketing an unfinished sentence. I texted Jenna, need you. Tomorrow. Her read receipt pinged almost instantly on my way. I killed the light, wedged the chair under the handle, and let my back find the mattress. Outside, Highway 17 moved like a dark river, hauling freight that never slept. I closed my eyes and pictured a metal box somewhere, waiting to be opened. Inside it, my mother's voice. Not to lull me. To wake me. The shelter sat behind a red brick church, a little bed of purple flowers and a frayed flag out back. The door opened on the smell of weak coffee and old wood. Pastor Ray appeared in a dark cardigan, the kind eyes of a man who's seen a lot and still bets on people. "Morgan," he said like he'd been expecting me. I nodded. He pointed to the kitchenette. "Coffee, chicken soup, peanut butter, bread. Eat first, then talk." I'm used to sitting straight. The plastic chair here makes your shoulders drop on contact. The spoon tapped my lip. Pepper and ginger ran warmth from my throat to my gut, like somebody relit a stove in an empty house. "I need a quiet place to open this." I set a waterproof poly pouch on the table. Inside lay the backup silver key. Trooper Morales gave me and a state card with an address. Pastor Ray didn't touch it. He just sat opposite, elbows light, patience steady. I pulled an old brown envelope and a sealed file out of my pack. I hadn't dared open them alone last night. Some doors should only be opened with someone there to witness your courage. Jenna arrived earlier than I expected. The door clicked. She came in wearing a hoodie, hair in a knot, a soft medic bag on her shoulder. Her dark eyes swept the room and landed on my knee brace. "Told you don't do this alone." She dropped to a knee, checked the brace fast, tightened a strap, voice equal parts scold and bomb. "Pain level, enough to remember," I said. Jenna snorted. "Good, remembering keeps you from repeating." She stood and flicked the table's edge, her ritual before a scene assessment. I cracked the file. Inside was a draft will. Paperclip to a note. "Final is in notarization if it doesn't clear. Use this to freeze assets. Call Linda Cho." Mom's handwriting was clean and decisive strokes that always finished what they started. Beneath it a USB labeled for M, and a paper map worn thin at the folds. A red circle marked a lakeside camp with an entrance off 17 Ridge, exactly what Mr. Harlan mentioned. A list in marker: camp lease scans, tax receipts, letter from former manager, utility payment history, and the last line boxed hard: "If Charlene interferes, call the police, do not confront alone." I slid the USB into the shelter's old laptop. A neat directory popped up: /lake camp / trust / medical / Jenna arched a brow. "Your mom files like a logistics officer." I laughed once, hands a little unsteady. In /trust / sat draft trust M Carter to PDF mom assigning me the lakeside camp and a small trust, plus a protection clause against financial abuse. /lake camp / held scans of the lease and years of utility payments in mom's name. A letter from the old manager thanking her for keeping camp open for girls who couldn't afford summer. At the bottom an audio file, voice memo.m4a. We shared a set of earbuds. Mom's voice slid out warm and steady, the way she sounded teaching me to double loop my laces. She talked about a long fatigue, about wanting to give you clean air again by keeping the camp intact, about signatures pushed at the hospital, and don't sign anything without a lawyer. At the end she paused and said, "Soft, if you're hearing this, you're in the right place. Trust yourself." I took the buds out and breathed deep. Pieces started tightening into a framed camp. Will clause, Charlene the storm. Jenna set her palm on the table. "We need a lawyer who plays civil and family and knows how to pull an emergency order." Pastor Ray nodded. "I know one Linda Cho in the bigger town an hour out. She's not flashy, but she's sharp." He dialed from the church phone, kept it short. "Linda, I've got a former MP with urgent papers. Can you do late morning video?" A beat, then a nod. 30 minutes. While we waited, I called the bank off the fraud alert. The IVR was soap bubble gentle, then a human. I verified, flagged suspected fraud, and requested a freeze on anything I didn't authorize in person. "We'll need documentation," the rep said. "I'll send it with a court order," I answered, calm enough that it surprised me. Jenna nudged my elbow. "There you go, bring drill cadence to real life." The laptop lit. Linda Cho, chin-length black hair, slim frames, a voice that doesn't waste oxygen. "Pastor says you have a lockbox and estate materials. I need 5 things: 1 the draft will, 2 proof of camp payments, 3 the audio about pressure to sign, 4 any sign of forged signatures, 5 all details on the Highway 17 incident." I screen shared, summarized, attached. Linda wrote with a fountain pen, tidy italic like nailing boards. "Good," she said. "First I'll file an emergency petition to freeze assets. request signature forensics, and send a demand letter to Charlene to preserve status quo. She looked up. You'll draft a detailed incident report for the trooper. I'll subpoena the mile 214 gas station footage. If the house cameras conveniently didn't record, we lean on independent sources. Jenna cut in. And the lakeside camp. Linda nodded. Once the freeze is in place, we go into inventory daylight, with a process server or trooper. I don't want any confrontation without witnesses. She lowered her voice. Morgan, are you safe? I glanced at the open door where rain-lit grass shined like mica. Safe enough, I said same words as last night. Linda gave a small smile. Safe enough for today, tomorrow. The law helps. After the call, Pastor Ray slid a blank sheet toward me. Right. Retired MPs still know how. I braced it on the folder and wrote the statement minute by minute, the mile 214 text, the misspelled name on the form, the shoulder shove on the dirt lane. I kept it like reports, no color, just facts. Jenna sat beside me and murmured, log sent, wind, tire noise. You taught me that. I added mud smell, wiper tempo, the hiss of tread on wet clay. When the last line dried, Pastor had an envelope and a fat clip waiting. I'll keep a copy in the church safe, he said. I handed over the USB for him to duplicate a backup for the backup. My phone buzzed a Morales, pulled mile 214 footage. Shows your car Charlene arriving and both of you leaving. No dirt road coverage, but I documented tire impressions. The knee started its afternoon ache thick but rhythmic. Jenna saw it, pulled out an ice pack, pressed it in place. Don't let pain pick the route, she said. I nodded. In my head the plan lines drew themselves like a patrol map, emergency order, signature forensics, mile 214 video, camp in daylight, never meet Charlene alone. On the table the silver key lay between two paper cups, throwing a sliver of light like a needle. Linda texted, filing at 3:00 p.m. Online check-in tonight. Under it, in caps, do not sign anything. I wasn't planning to sign. I was planning to open the box, open the camp, open my mouth and tell this story my way, not the way Charlene pitches it to shadow advisors. I stepped onto the porch and pulled a lungful of post-rain air, wind chimes ticking like dry bones. A man in a knit cap walked by and nodded. I nodded back. People here know no money is not the same as no way. I held the key until it warmed to my skin like a spare pulse. When I came back in, Pastor pushed a fresh printed area map toward me, 17 Ridge and the Lake Turnin circled dark. He tapped the ink. Tomorrow, daylight, with law on your flank. I'll pray you do your part. I tied up loose hair. It'd been a long time since things felt in formation squad, objective, egress, logistics. A voice from the recorder bridged past to present trust yourself. I didn't know everything waiting in that lockbox, but I knew what Mom left tonight, an order go all the way. Jenna rapped the table and tilted a grin. We crack the camp tomorrow. Today, finish your soup. The spoon chimed on porcelain, a small sound but sure. Out on Highway 17, the day's chord finally tuned. And once the string is true, you only have to pluck it, the rest of the song finds you. The state trooper post smelled like fresh coffee and warm paper. Morales was already there in a crisp blue shirt, overhead lights mostly off so morning could do the work. He slid a gray metal box across the desk no bigger than a paperback dictionary. Here, he said, tapping the receipt. Your mother checked it in with a note, daylight only. Preferred trooper escort. Jenna took my right flank without being asked. Old habits. I set the silver key into the slot. Metal kissed metal, the quiet greeting two veterans give each other. Old school mechanism, half turn, press pull. The lid opened without a sound. Inside, a rubber-banded packet of documents, a second thumb drive labeled Redoubt, a thin leather notebook, and a wax-sealed envelope stamped with an R. Mom was using Redoubt long before I ever heard it as a name. I cracked the wax. Out slid a notarized wool green stamp, clean date, Mom's signature, and two witnesses. At the bottom, a gate clause in plain English: if there's evidence of financial abuse or coerced signatures, void prior powers of attorney and grant temporary authority to the beneficiary Morgan Carter. My hand trembled once, then remembered itself. Jenna bumped my elbow. Breathe. The rubber band packet held original bank statements, small withdrawals weeks before Mom died, shaved off like someone was hollowing ice from beneath. A photocopied legal invoice wore the wrong signature sloppy, and the same misspelling in Mom's last name I caught at the gas station. Paperclipped to it was a letter from Mom. If things spin off axis, get all of this to an attorney who knows how to pull emergency orders. Last line in her firm slant, the lake camp is yours, and for any girl who needs another shore. Morales plugged in Redoubt. Scans of the camp purchase, charitable tax status, the utility confirmations a battlefield laid out the way Mom always staged one supply, routes, contingencies. The folder/footage/ held 3 stills from the mile 214 cameras he'd already pulled. Frame 119, 42. My car under the tin roof. Frame 2, Charlene stepping out of her SUV, head on a swivel. Frame 3, the dirt road exit, deep tire ruts and a red taillight ribbon. I've got the full video on the server, Morales said. We'll print these as Exhibit A. He set down a foam-mounted photo of a tread pattern, the ridges etched like a fingerprint. My phone buzzed Linda Cho, ready for your packet. We headed to the bank listed on the card. The manager took us downstairs, echoing concrete, fluorescent buzz, a vault door like a ship's hatch. I put both silver keys on the tray. The manager turned theirs and mine, slid out box 144. Inside, a manila file marked Lakeside Redoubt. Mom, doing what she does best to stage the terrain. Top layer, a fresh camp map and a photo of the dock at golden hour. Under that, a letter from the former manager, Amos. Charlene asked about temporary transfer. We declined, her name isn't on file. There was a half-baked contract. Someone had tried to muscle through, signed C. Briggs as authorized agent, but the authority-attached line was blank. Clipped beside it, a third USB-labeled clinic. We opened the file in a side room, a short hospital recording. Mom, voice raspy but taut as a good string. I'm not signing anything today. I'm waiting for my daughter. We FaceTimed Linda from the bank's conference nook. She had me pan each page slowly. Excellent, she said, voice dropping into that gear attorneys use when everything lines up. I'm filing an emergency freeze on all assets tied to the camp and accounts, plus signature forensics on those shaky POAs. I'll send a preservation demand to Charlene. Touch anything, and she's in violation. She paused, then Morgan, write a supplemental statement cite. The 1942 still, trooper testimony, and the shoulder shove on the dirt road. I want a timeline sharp enough to cut. Jenna nodded like a medic confirming a pulse. I skimmed the rest of the box. Bottom layer, a small photo me at 11 on the dock, fishing pole too big for my hands. Mom behind me shading my face. The water is a sheet of glass. On the back she'd written, anyone who says water only washes things away never learned how it keeps them. I slid the picture into my wallet, beside the torn MP patch, one soft memory, one hard. We swung by the post again, so Morales could log copies with the case. He handed me a sealed packet, mile 214 video extract and tread report width, lug pattern, steering bias. He smiled quick. Water keeps prints better than people think if you look against the light. I signed receipt. The pen tracked smoother than the last 48 hours. By afternoon, Linda called, judge granted the temporary freeze. We've got 48 hours to fortify, she said. Tomorrow I want you, Trooper Morales, and ideally a court officer at the lake camp for a quick inventory. No arguing. No touching what you don't have to. Count, shoot, seal. I looked at Jenna. She nodded like she'd just been given an op order. Linda added, demand letters out to Charlene. She won't like it. Do not be alone. Do not engage. Charlene's number lit my screen all evening, playing concern until it soured into threats. Jenna flipped my phone to silent and slid it back. Let counsel talk. I sat on the station steps, knee snug in the brace, breathing air that finally had less rain in it. In my pocket, the 1942 frame felt like a tack pinning the story to the board, no longer just my word, a timestamp. Sometimes justice needs exactly one frame, and gravity arranges the rest. Back at the shelter that night, Pastor Ray set 3 paper cups and a big 17-ridge map on the table. He circled the entry and marked 3 control points: gate, dock, kitchen. Tomorrow, he said, Move like a squad point, center with the files, tail end Charlie. Let the documents speak. I nodded. Jenna unpacked bandages and meds. Logistics is its own comfort. Morales texted last the night. I'll stage the cruiser at the turnoff at safe light. I didn't need a clock. I just needed daylight to show up. When the moon shook free of the clouds, I opened the leather notebook and wrote day the box opened. Mom exists in ink, the camp in paper, justice in a freeze order. Knees still sore, but with my people at my flanks, the body remembers how to advance. I closed the book and slid it away. On the table, 2 silver keys lay side by side like twin lightning strikes. One had opened a box. I believed the other would open a gate, the spot where this stops being a victim's story and starts being a homeowner's. Lights out. I leaned back with the waterproof pouch against my chest. Somewhere, roof water ticked down in steady plinks regular enough to feel like a clock, but I didn't count. Tomorrow isn't for counting. Tomorrow is for opening. The county courthouse smelled like fresh varnish and an overworked copier. I sat straight on a bench, palm resting on the edge of my knee brace, the rough cotton reminding me I didn't come here to shake. Linda Cho leaned in, voice low. Pace is fast. Yes, no, don't know. Let the documents talk. She slid me a plastic binder mile, 2/14/1942 up front, then the tire print photos, the signature forensics, and the notarized will from the lockbox. Jenna took my left flank, tapping a fingertip on the cover like a marching cadence. Keep it steady, she whispered. The courtroom was white bright, one clean rap of the gavel. Charlene came in wearing cream, chin lifted, gaze skimming over me like a butter knife over bread. Beside her a man in a black suit with eyes that said nothing. The judge scanned the docket and looked up. We're here on an emergency petition to preserve status, freeze assets, order signature forensics, and consider conduct that may constitute financial abuse. Linda stood, voice flat as a morning lake. We have 5 pieces, Your Honor, a notarized will, proof of withdrawals before death, mile 214 camera footage, dirt road tire evidence, and a forensic opinion on the suspect POAs. Opposing counsel smiled a half smile. A recently separated MP with a knee history spins a conspiracy. His name fell out of his mouth like a damp pebble. Linda didn't bother turning. We call the forensic examiner. A salt and pepper expert took the stand, swore in, and stuck to short sentences. He pointed to enlarged signatures here. A downstroke changes angle unnaturally. Here, ink pressure fades and returns like the pen paused. Conclusion: the signature on the financial POA is not Mrs. Ruth Carter's. The medical POA shows a grafted date. The air changed like someone cracked a window. Opposing counsel pressed certain. The examiner gave a practiced shrug. Within the limits of my science, certain. Linda advanced mile 214 to 1942 to the screen. Tin roof gas station, my car, then Charlene entering frame. Independent evidence, extracted by State Trooper Ethan Morales. Morales stepped up, uniform sharp, hat tucked under his arm. His voice held that radio clarity. I responded to a rescue call on Highway 17. Located Ms. Carter soaked. Knee braced in the field, pack discarded at the shoulder. I transported her to the ER, then processed camera and tire impressions near mile 214. Linda, did you see anyone attempt to take Ms. Carter to a secluded area? Morales looked at Charlene, then back to the bench. I did not witness that directly. The tread pattern and road align with the 17 ridge turnoff to a dirt lane. He set a foam board down, the tread ridges printed like a fingerprint, measurements lined up neat along the edge. Opposing counsel rose, feigning pity. An enthusiastic trooper isn't a video. Linda didn't blink. We have video. Move to enter Exhibit A. The screen rolled Charlene by the SUV, scanning, then leaving. No dirt road footage, everyone knew that, but the timestamp and sequence were the thing. Linda let a few seconds of silence do the narration. My turn. Linda asked only what we'd rehearsed. I answered like an MP report. The text to meet at mile 214, the misspelled last name on the form, being coaxed down a side road, the shoulder shove at the shoulder, the smell of mud, the wiper's tempo, the way the left knee folded wrong. Opposing counsel, were you armed? No, I carried a legal pepper spray for self-defense. Did you attack my client? No. He narrowed his eyes. Do you hate her? I kept my voice level. I want the truth. Hate is a feeling. The court needs evidence. Linda introduced the notarized will from the lockbox. Green stamp, clean date. The gate clause read out loud like a step built to hold weight. Opposing counsel sighed about paperwork paranoia. Linda stayed mild. Then we'll call the hospital. She cued the clinic audio from the USB. Mom's voice thin but steady. I'm not signing anything today. I'm waiting for my daughter. The room went so quiet the sound of a page turning became its own event. I didn't look at Charlene, but I heard her breathing change one fast, hard inhale. By late morning the judge called a 15-minute recess. Out in the hall, water trickled into paper cones from a cooler, a small peaceful sound. Jenna bumped my shoulder. Solid. Linda marked 2 lines in her notebook, then shut it. This afternoon I'll ask to extend the freeze and add a protective order. Back in session, the defense tried to paint me as unstable. They waved a handful of chopped-up texts and a concerned letter from Charlene. Linda dismantled it by time, lined the 1942 frame, beside the ER record noting the brace, beside Morales's voicemail. Lay the pieces in order and the stitches in their story showed. Charlene finally took the stand. Under oath, she said, I just wanted a quiet place to sign. Linda on a dirt road? Charlene's shoulders twitched. I don't remember. Did you drive Ms. Carter toward the 17 Ridge Trail? No, Linda nodded almost gently like she'd been waiting for that. Please view the tire print comparison to your vehicle. Tread matches. Charlene snapped. Everybody uses that road. Linda smiled. Not many on a storm night. Then she lowered her voice. Were you aware my mother? Mrs. Ruth Carter told a nurse she would not sign without her daughter. Charlene glanced at her attorney, eyes darting. I was only protecting her. Linda didn't raise her tone. Did protecting include withdrawing funds before she died? Something gave in Charlene's mouth. The fatigue of a story carried too far. She flicked a look my way as if to cash an old favor. This wasn't an old favor shop. This was dates and ink. The judge read for a long time, then lifted his head. When he spoke, his voice was calm and edged like a spine. The court extends the freeze order. The court issues a temporary protective order for Ms. Morgan Carter. The court rejects disputed POA's pending forensic review. Property associated with Lakeside Redoubt will be preserved in place. Any contact contrary to this order will be addressed immediately. One more rap. No applause in courtrooms. Still, somewhere behind my ribs, water rounded a bend and kept going. In the hallway, Charlene swept past, perfume heavy enough to hide something else. You'll regret this, she hissed so small only I heard it. I met her eyes without a promise and without an apology. Linda stepped between us, polite like a barricade. Ms. Briggs, read the order carefully. Charlene scoffed and click-clacked away like she was knocking on someone else's door. Morales waited at the end of the hall with 2 paper coffees. I can't cheer in there, he said. Out here I can. He handed me one. Jenna nudged me. Congrats, safe enough, just leveled up to safer. I smiled. The first time my face relaxed without orders. Linda opened her calendar. Day after tomorrow, Lakeside inventory with a court officer. Count, seal, file, then we push the next motion. Tonight, you rest. Soldiers sleep too. On the courthouse steps, a sun wiped the lawn like an old window finally cleaned. I looked down the road to the highway, the same road that had carried me into rain, now dry, stripes fresh. In my pocket, the torn MP patch and the doc photo clicked together with a tiny sound. Not triumph. Reminder, I thought of Mom and the note on the back of that photo water keeps. Today the law did too, kept what should be kept, gave back what should be mine. I lifted the coffee and breathed in the bitter. Next to me, Jenna texted Pastor Ray a 2-word sitrep order granted. Morales tipped his head. Good enough to go home, I said, and tomorrow go to the lake. This time, home wasn't a door someone else could lock. It was a place I would open with a silver key, with a court order, and with the names of the people who stood on my flanks when it rained. The turnoff to the lake wore a sun-bleached wooden sign, camp faded like a memory sanded thin. We idled before a wooden gate, vines braided through the hinges, a rust-browned padlock hanging tired. The court officer read the order, noted the date, and nodded. I pulled a silver key, metal met metal, a clean dry click. The gate swung and the smell of water and pine walked out to meet us. Some smells wake a room in your body you didn't know had a window. The pine kitchen stood still. On the porch a chalkboard still read Menu Week 7, Ghost Pale. Jenna took point with a flashlight, checking door frames and footprints. Morales brought up the rear, eyes combing the tree line, palm resting on his belt, safety as reflex. I walked center with the file. Down at the dock, the lake lay glass flat. The sky dropped on it without breaking. I thought of the photo in my wallet, me small with a fishing pole, Mom behind me shading my face. We split like a 3-person squad. Jenna cleared the clinic room. I went with the officer into the office. Morales shot overall scenes. The office had a green file cabinet, second drawer labeled lease and tax. Inside the manila folders I'd seen as scans, now ink you could smudge, paper you could crease. I checked against the list, logged numbers, took photos. The officer sealed each bundle with a red sticker and signed along the seam. He worked slow and exact, like the law itself needed an even breath to keep its hand steady. In a desk drawer sat a tin full of pens and an envelope marked M. In Mom's hand. Inside, one small note: if you open this gate, you've already done the hard part. What's left is not revenge, it's returning. I held still for a beat, throat tight the way it gets after a long run. Jenna called soft. Hey, clinic's got cots and some decent supplies. Morales, photographing the back fence, called rear gate shows no pry marks. Looks like no one's been in since it shut. By the time we regrouped at the dock, the sun had tipped, laying a smear of yolk yellow across the water. Linda faced timed seals in place. I panned each red sticker. She nodded. Good. I'll file for long-term preservation. Morgan, if you're willing, we can request temporary operation for community use under court supervision. Do you have a team? I looked at Jenna. She lifted her medic bag, half joke, half oath. We've built a clinic out of tents before. Morales said, I'll get the local vets post to cover nights, at least at the start. The court officer scribbled another line, then closed his book. Clean file, he said. Looks like someone knew exactly what she wanted. We drove back when the trees grew longer than we were. On the way I called Pastor Ray. He listened and smiled into the receiver. I've got bunks, clean blankets, 2 kettles. I can run them over tonight. I squeezed and released the wheel pressure drill for nerves. From now on, every motion would have a target. Flip a switch, crack a window, light a stove. I texted the 3 women vets Pastor had mentioned, staying at the shelter for now if you want. Come tomorrow. Beds for a week to start. No questions. We didn't sleep at the camp that first night. The order required a veterans watch detail. Back at the shelter, I played Mom's voice memo again. Earbuds in, let her voice pass through like cool air. She never taught me how to hate. She taught me how to tie laces and keep promises to myself. Go all the way, she'd say. Tonight it sounded like keep a roof lit. Day 2 we returned with a pickup full of basics. Morales mounted motion lights at the gate and the dock. Jenner ran line and flagged safe lanes. I wiped the kitchen tables until the buried pine came back, the wood giving a tiny sound under my palm, the kind that makes me miss home more than any song. The court officer swung by, checked the boundaries of temporary operation, signed off. Linda texted good. Focus on serving, I'll handle the filings. By afternoon, 3 women showed up. One with a torn backpack, one with a cat in a carrier, one with a single plastic bag. They stood under the not yet painted sign, hopeful and guarded at once. I met them at the gate with mugs of hot chocolate Jenna had stirred. Here, I said, plain as a shift brief, no one asks why you're late. We ask if you're hungry. One woman cupped the mug in both hands and whispered, thank you, like someone who just made it across a river. I walked them past the kitchen, the showers, the bunks folded square. On the porch, I could hear their breathing change from short and tight to long and deep. Sunset dropped a coin of copper onto the lake. Pastor Ray arrived with blankets. He stood at the dock and his eyes went wet when he saw the sign I'd hung, Lakeside Redoubt. Good name, he said. I nodded. A redoubt isn't a castle, it's a place you fall back to so you can stand up again. Not fancy. Enough. Before dinner we formed a small circle on the porch. I don't like speeches, but sometimes one short sentence is the tool that fits. Out here, I said, voice level like a post order, all of us have stood in the rain. Our job is to build a roof, keep the lights on, and learn to read signs so next time, nobody gets pushed to the shoulder. Jenna bumped my arm and grinned. And cook things people can actually eat. Laughter rose the first porch laugh. It lingered longer than I expected. When the sky went dark, I framed the torn MP patch and hung it in the entry. Not a trophy, not an offering. A reminder, I've stood gate before, and I still do. The difference now is the gate opens onto a kitchen, a bunk, a dock. I stepped back and watched the glass catch a ring of warm light. Linda called the court, extended the protective order. The freeze stays while forensics proceed. They've calmed down, she said, because your evidence is heavy. Next we move to division of property. But tonight stay home. I answered with 2 words she didn't expect: thank you. On her end I heard a pen tap the desk, someone who knows a leg of a long job is done. Late water lapped the dock, pages turning themselves. I went out alone, set the photo of me at 11 on the rail. The line on the back, water keeps, suddenly meant more. It keeps the lost, the stories dunked under, the almost locked forever doors. I closed my eyes and let my heartbeat fall into step with the water. Was there ever a time I didn't belong anywhere? Maybe belonging starts when you decide to name a place home and take responsibility for its light. I still had the leather notebook. I opened it and wrote Lakeside Redoubt, turn on the stove light, crack the windows, make 2 beds, open another door in my head. I shut the book. Tomorrow would be small work done steadily by soap, schedule a safety check, draft a watch bill, walk the knee back to strength. Ordinary is how you build durable. Morales rolled by the gate before night patrol. Window down, a quick salute. Motion lights look good. He glanced past me at the sign. Beautiful. Not fancy, I said. Enough. He handed me a waterproof sleeve, fresh copies of the order and key photos. Keep it by the door, he said. Like a fire extinguisher. I smiled. Firefighting for the soul. I eased the gate shut, the silver key warm in my palm like a breath. Not a key for locking people out. A key for opening a road in. The night breathed easy. The lake did too. I killed the porch light and left a thin wash of gold in the entry, enough for anyone drifting off Highway 17 to see there's a stop ahead where the first question is whether you're hungry, not whether you can prove anything. Tomorrow I'll get up early, make weak coffee, send thank you emails. I'll text Linda, Morales, Pastor, Jenna. I'll start a maintenance log. I'll stand on the dock and watch the water hold the sky. And when someone knocks at the gate, I'll open it.